So is there anybody that has to leave early today? We'll get that. Councillor Miskimans. Just before 11? All right, perfect. Anybody up? Councillor McDonald.
By about 12:45. Thank you.
And Councillor Bell.
By about 12:30.
12:30. Councillor Smith.
I have to leave at 12:45 as well.
12:45 as well. So, all right, perfect. If I can get a roll call from my clerk, Jonathan. There we go.
Thank you, Warden. All members are in attendance with a few exceptions. We have Councillor Cox absent with alternate Councillor Mark Taylor in attendance. We have Councillor Hamlin absent with alternate Councillor Kathy Jeffrey in attendance. We have regrets from Councillor McClellan. We have regrets from Councillor Measures with alternate Councillor John Broderick in attendance. And we have regrets from Councillor Sondu with alternate Councillor Jonathan Scott in attendance. And finally, I'd just like to note, just for the record, that we received correspondence that's on today's council agenda from the town of Midland, and Beth Prost has been formally appointed as the deputy mayor there, and Councillor Prost joins us and has been sworn in. You have your quorum. Thank you.
Welcome again, Councillor. So I will look for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Greenlaw that the agenda for February 27th, 2024 meeting of Council be approved.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? The agenda today. If you find yourself in that situation later, please announce it at that time. Presentations and deputations, we have none. Consent agenda, Councillor Burkett.
Good morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council Communications and Proclamations, February the 13th, 2024 to February 26, 2024, have been given due consideration, be received.
Everyone's heard the motion on that. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. And I guess we also have the letters from the town of Midland. Councillor Burkett.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Smith, that the letter dated February the 16th, 2024 from the town of Midland regarding the appointment of Deputy Mayor Beth Prost be received.
Everybody's heard the motion. No objections? I'm looking for that. All right, all in favor. So adoption of council minutes. Deputy Warden Coghlan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Locks, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted and the Committee of the Whole reports be confirmed. County Council minutes of February 13th, 2024, Committee of the Whole report February 13th, 2024, and Confidential Committee of the Whole report February 13th, 2024.
On the minutes, any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're already on to our considerations of Committee of the Whole reports. Chair Evans.
Good morning. Thank you, Warden, and good morning, everybody in Council. Motion is that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated February 13th, 2024, including the confidential item, be approved. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miskimans.
Thank you. Councillors, any items to be pulled? And all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Chair Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. We're on to 9.2, the Committee of Whole, Human Services. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Human Services recommendation contained within the Committee of Whole report dated February 13th, 2024, including the confidential item, be approved.
Any items to be pulled? Not seeing any, so all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And Chair Dolan.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fowler that the corporate services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated February the 13th, 2024 be approved.
Any items to be pulled out of corporate? Not seeing any, so all in favor of that motion. Thank you. So special committee reports, we have none. Presentations of officers' reports, we have none. Motions which notices have been given, none. Notices of motion, don't remember receiving any. Closed sections, none. So we're already on to consideration of the bills. Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, Second by Councillor Cabral, that bill number 7056-24 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
On that motion, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we are now on to announcements. So I do have one to start. That on February 20th, I had the honor of attending the Farm Fresh Ontario's awards presentation in St. Catharines and accepted the 2023 Farm Fresh Ontario Ambassador Award on behalf of the County of Simcoe's Economic Development Office. At this time, I would like to call up Nancy Heather and also Ruth Walker-Scott from our Economic Development to present the award to them. Here in the County of Simcoe, we pride ourselves on celebrating and supporting all things made in Simcoe County, as well as a large variety of agritourism experiences across the region, from maple syrup, honey, craft beverage production and farm markets, pumpkin patches, barn quilts, and you-pick experiences. There's no shortage of fun to be had on the farms here in Simcoe County. And when I was at the awards, you should have heard the praise I heard for both Ruth and Nancy in our department. So I'd like to present them the award now. I felt embarrassed receiving it because these are the folks that were doing all the hard work. Somebody here to take a picture.
Other duties as assigned, Mark.
Just special thanks to the Economic Development Committee and all of Council for your support in our economic development and tourism initiatives in the agribusiness and agritourism sector, and all the great collaboration with our partners across the county. Thank you.
So any other announcements and inquiries? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to close the loop on last meeting's announcement about Coldest Night in the Year, which is a really big deal fundraiser all across Canada for homeless shelter funding. And I wanted to just shout out to the North Simcoe team. There were 134 walkers, 25 teams, and a myriad of volunteers. The website only shows 9, but I know there were many more volunteers, including a bunch of kids cheering everybody on the 2 and the 5 kilometer routes. They made it through 62% of their goal. They always ask for obviously as much as they can. They were going for 50 grand, but I'm really happy to announce that we've raised $31,341 collectively for North Simcoe, for the guest house shelter in Midland, which is one of the many worthy homeless shelters that are primarily funded by the county through the province. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all the folks that participated in that throughout our entire county area, and just call out in specific the ones in my jurisdiction, because they really opened their hearts and their wallets. And for those following along that may have thought, oh geez, I meant to donate to that, you still can. That fundraising is ongoing, and you can visit the CNOY, just Google CNOY, Coldest Night of the Year, and you can donate money to this worthy cause. It makes up the funding gap between what we're able to fund through the province, through the county, and what they actually need to operate. So very important, and I just wanted to say thank you and my grateful support of not only members of this House, but all the people in their communities that also walk for the shelters in their jurisdictions.
Well done to all the volunteers. And it turned out, I think it was the coldest night of the year that they're out walking, because, as you know, we haven't had too much winter this year. Any other announcements? So I do, oh yes, Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that registration is open for the Ontario Small Urban Municipal Conference, which is hosted this year right here in the city of Orillia, at our friends in the city of Orillia. If you're familiar with Roma or Ogra or AMO, it's not like that. I call it a boutique conference. It's much more intimate, but always really good content that matters to small urban municipalities. Thank you.
It doesn't get any closer to home for me.
May 1st to the 3rd, sorry.
All right, May 1st to the 3rd. Perfect. Any other announcements? So what we've got is our It Starts campaign that we will be flying the flag this morning. I'll read the proclamation now. We'll finish with our adjournment, and then we'll go out and gather around for the raising of the flag. So I'll read the proclamation. As you know, once again this year we are running our It Starts campaign to raise awareness for multiculturalism. It Starts aims to reduce racism and discrimination in our communities through education and support from community champions and partners, and from the community leaders like those here in this room today. Last year, our social media reach for its campaign was 5.1 million, is how many they reached. That's over 5 million people who saw and heard our message. That says loud and clear, Simcoe County is welcome to everyone. On March 2024, we will be running this campaign once more. Currently in its 8th year, this initiative is supported by the Simcoe County Local Immigration Partnership that includes community partners. All of our municipalities has received one of these flags, and I hope we'll all take the time to raise it. We're putting ours up March 1st. If it hasn't reached you yet, make sure you let us know and we'll get you a flag, and we will continue to fly the flag proudly until the end of March here at Simcoe County. So I'm inviting everybody to come out after the meeting as soon as we adjourn, and we will put our flag up. So with that, I will move on to confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Norcross.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett, that Bill number 7057-24 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
On that bylaw, all in favor? That is carried. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Walker, second by Councillor Fryer. All in favor? That is carried. We'll see everybody outside.
All rise.
It's warming up. I don't think I need to wear the hat when I go out, do I? Yep, perfect. So let me just get into my committee of the whole. I think I got it ready. Okay, it looks like we're all here, so I'll call the meeting to order and I'll look for attendance from my clerk. Jonathan?
Thank you very much, Warden. In addition to those noted in attendance at council, we have regrets from Aurelia Councillor Durnford, Aurelia Councillor Fallis is in attendance, Barrie Councillor Hamilton in attendance, Aurelia Mayor McIsaac is absent, Barrie Councillor Negussi is present, Barrie Mayor Nuttall is present, and Barrie Councillor Rietma is present. You have your quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I'll look for approval of the agenda from Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by alternate Councillor Jeffrey that the agenda for the February 27th, 2024 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
On the agenda, any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest for any member of council. Not seeing any, but you find yourself in that situation, please declare it at that time. The consent, oh, hang on, what am I doing now? Get my paper straight. Presentations and delegations, we have none, so we'll start with our performance management. Chair Evans.
Thank you, Warden. Good morning, Council. I have a resolution in front of me that item CCW 2024-058 dated February 27th, 2024 regarding Simcoe County Archives operations in January 2024 be received. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fryer. Thank you, sir. Any discussion on this item, Council? Oh, I'm sorry.
You're
My
chairing
bad.
now, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I will need a mover. Councillor Coghlan, thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Fryer. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Good. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I believe back to you, Warden. Thank you.
That's it for now, and we'll go into our human services with Chair Leduc.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, our reps from Barrie and Aurelia. I have the consent agenda. There's one item on the consent agenda, the paramedic services response. So I have moved by, the consent agenda moved by Councillor Van Stravern and then Councillor Laux, that the following consent item having been given due consideration be received. Question or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We're into section 7, the human services social housing. 7.1, end of mortgage, new service agreements or agreements. Discussion on this one. Anybody have any questions or concerns with this one? Councillor Fallis.
Thanks. Through the chair, I had heard this question actually posed before the meeting too, and by another councillor, and I was just curious if we don't proceed with this, what are the impacts, I guess? Is there, I guess, ideally we want to maintain the housing that's in place, but we're limited because those contracts, from my understanding, do have to end. So I'm wondering if staff can maybe weigh in what, if we don't support, like, hypothetically, if we didn't put this forward, what's the impact? Thanks.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to GM.
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Fallis. The end of operating agreements are going to be legislated in. We're still waiting on provincial guidelines, but we have been instructed. So the history is these are the 30-year-old mortgages either issued by federal or provincial programs many years ago before the devolution of social and community housing to the municipalities. In order to maintain the affordability after the 30 years, we have to re-engage those operators in a way to ensure that they, because they're now free and clear of their mortgage, they can, through attrition, through vacancies, change the rent rates as they so choose. Because most of these providers, specifically the nonprofit and the cooperative sectors, were financed in a way that operating costs are very thin, like the margins are thin. They're often, tempted to raise rents. So these end of operating agreements, what they would do is re-engage them for a certain period of time in order to maintain that affordability and continue to be a part of the service manager catchment. So this is us as a service manager proceeding ahead of waiting on the guidelines, as many of the operating agreements will start coming to an end, and ensuring to protect the affordability in those units, in those buildings and communities, rather than take the risk of them walking away without the guidelines being in place.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions on this? So seeing none, can I have you, Councillor Fallis, move this? Move this report. Seconded by Councillor Ripma from Barrie. That item CCW 2024-017 dated February 27, 2024 regarding end of mortgage, new service agreements or exit agreements be received, and the necessary bylaw be enacted to authorize the general manager, social and community services, or a director from social and community services in their absence, and the county clerk to enter into a service agreements or exit service agreements with current community and affordable housing providers that reach the end of mortgage, and that staff develop a long-term strategy for funding housing providers reaching the end of their mortgages. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're on to 7.2. It's Municipal Housing Project Facilities Bylaw, CCW 2024-049. Any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Fallis?
Thanks. This one I had concerns about in terms of adjusting the definition of affordable housing to 120% average market rent. And I'd like staff to, or if it's possible, to have staff kind of weigh in on what are the benefits of this. Is it just applicable for private developers, or would this be applied for all non-profits, all entities providing affordable housing? Because that was one of the questions. The second question is, could you give a bit more of an explanation? I think there was mention of a 30%. There was something like it had to be, it couldn't go above an individual's income to 30% of their income, basically, that there was that limit in place. And with that kind of factor, how does that work with 120% market rent? Because I would assume that would regularly be surpassed, that 30% threshold. So just if staff could weigh in on that, that'd be appreciated. Thanks.
John Hunter, back to you.
Through the chair, I can answer the first part, and I'll ask Director Spiewak from Housing Services to answer the second part. So this bylaw would apply to all who are developing affordable housing in the county. So whether it's a private developer, a nonprofit, or a municipal entity, this is an opportunity for us as a service manager and us as a county to be able to incentivize the development by entering into agreements with those developers or those proposed developments to do things like, waive certain charges or fees. You could offset or delay or defer property tax increases, things like that. It's a standard tool. We've had it for many, many years here at the county. We're just updating the definition to qualify and to clarify the definition for affordability. The second part of how that definition is structured, I'll ask Director Spiewak to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fells, for the question and through the chair. So by adjusting that affordable definition, we're aligning a little bit more to the true market conditions. So the province has a very clear definition of what affordable is, and that is at the 60th percentile. So if you actually take that number and take your 30% as indicated in the report, you can see the rent is actually up to a maximum of the 1970 that would be deemed as affordable rent. So if you actually go through, and again, we can use Barrie as the example because it would be the highest rate. For a one-bedroom in Barrie at 100 AMR, you're basically sitting at $1,427, so still affordable and well below. Even when you go up to 120 AMR, you're still well below that at $1,712. So what we're doing is we're basically allowing not only the Simcoe County Housing Corp and ourselves, but other affordable housing providers to raise their rents, but still be well within that definition of affordable to ensure both sustainability and affordability.
Good question, Councillor Fowles. Are you understanding the concept? You're good with it? Follow-up? Go ahead.
Well, just, a quick follow-up question there, because I do understand, I understand the logic of it, or the kind of what's happening. I guess my fear is that in adjusting this, we would create kind of a situation where more housing, rather than hitting the 100% affordability rate, it's going to be hitting the 120%, the 120% market average. And I mean, hearing $19.70 a month, that, I mean, I would argue that's borderline that's not affordable. That's just market rent. And so at what point are we just subsidizing market rent units? That's my concern. I'm wondering if staff maybe can respond to that. Thanks.
General Manager?
Through the chair, maybe I'll provide some clarification and then ask Director Spivak to speak in detail. The first part of it is the 120% AVRM just gives more flexibility to us as a direct housing operator, as a tool to be able to layer in additional subsidies. For example, the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, by raising it to 120, we can apply a secondary subsidy to drive down affordability. So it does give us more flexibility to match with some of the standing rent supplement programs out there, which currently we don't have to our disposal. The second part of that is that this is a bylaw that just gives the service manager the opportunity to engage in the agreement. Doesn't necessarily mean there's an automatic incentive that's issued. So we'll look at a case-by-case basis on each development proposal, and obviously we're always seeking the most affordability as possible. But in order for these proposals to be sustainable, we definitely have to ensure that they have the right revenue stream so they don't collapse. And quite honestly, from the previous report, you're seeing a nonprofit sector that was under-resourced in its revenue model, and has experienced 30 years worth of challenges. So we're trying to avoid that, making sure the definition allows for enough revenue, but still maintains affordability and allows us to qualify with additional subsidies. And I can, maybe Director Spivak can share a little bit of that from the community housing standpoint.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, the only thing I would add is to remember that council has also approved mixed income. And so typically in our buildings, we're putting 80% of the units are at the 80% average market rent, and is only a very small percentage, which is the 20% that we're raising into the 100 to 120 range. So that balance of mixed income is heavily weighted in terms of the affordable units. And then the other thing to remember that is, and I think I've mentioned it before, is that even though the rents may be set at a certain rate, that's not what the tenant is necessarily paying. We still apply a number of subsidies to bring that rent even lower and to make it more affordable, to address certain vulnerable and targeted groups.
Okay, thank you for that. We're good, Councillor Fowles?
Just apologies, last question here. Does this, by making this adjustment, does it open the door for any additional funding streams for the county? Can we take advantage of any additional funding streams as a result? Thanks.
Through the chair, it can. There's nothing in specific right now, but experience has seen as other service managers have been able to negotiate with the federal government to raise to 120% AMR, especially in urban centers that have high rent, to be able to stack different subsidies. So this tool would allow us to engage in that request.
Okay, so great back and forth. Thank you for those questions. So I'm going to ask for moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor. Oh, I got another question. Sorry, Mayor Noel.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. In the report, it says that there's, I think it said there's no financial implications. Where is this funded from? Like any of the incentives?
Through the chair. So this program, or incentives in general, are usually funded through waivers of either different development charges, different fee charges, or deferrals of increases in property taxes. Those are the different ways that usually these incentives across, different service managers use an array of different approaches.
So when there's a tax deferral or tax waiver or a DC reduction or what have you, are those dollars, like what accounts are those dollars coming from? Like do you repay your DC account because you got to keep your DC whole, right? So is there funding inside of Human Services that then goes to supplement, because it comes from somewhere?
So can we turn this over to GM Wilcox? Is that something you could help?
Okay. So through the chair, so I can share the best practice, and then maybe GM Wilcox can discuss the specifics of how a mechanism like that works here in the county. Generally speaking, this was the tool, if you recall, Bill 23 kind of eliminated the specifics of being able to raise DCs for affordable housing. This tool preceded even those DC charges tools. So this is basically how all affordable housing was developed in the last 35 years in Ontario. And really what it is it incentivizes private developers to engage in creating affordability. So yes, to direct point, when you defer revenues or property taxes, which in different service managers around Ontario, they've already waived those property taxes, not even deferred them, for things like community housing. We have yet to do that here at the county. Other DCs and other soft costs and fees have also been waived in most areas. Here we do it by case, depending on revenue streams and what makes sense. Because again, we also don't want to choke off the revenue stream, which ultimately might cause another, pain point. But here it's just giving us the discretion to engage those rather than have them just built for private or for market rent, which then makes things even more unaffordable in our communities. I can throw it to General Wilcox on the specifics in the county.
Through the chair, in terms of the DCs, when depends upon how your bylaw is structured, but it would be made up by the other portions of the DC. So you're keeping the whole pie is the same. It would be made up by the other proponents in the DC through the DC bylaw. So it wouldn't be a direct impact to the levy, but it would be an impact to the DC rates.
Okay, so in the case of this report, this only really applies to, well, it doesn't apply to Aurelia and Barrie. Because you don't have the power to waive our DCs, and you don't have the power to defer our taxes, and you don't have the power to waive our fees.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. The bylaw is a county bylaw, so it's to facilitate if the service manager can engage in negotiating with a proposal. If the proposal obviously comes in the two separated cities, a developer or the development's happening there, then it would be up to the local separated city to incentivize as they see fit.
Have there been any conversations with the separated cities to provide a uniform approach? You're one service manager, and now you're managing multiple routes to get to the same end goal.
Through the chair, yes. Like historically, this bylaw would match the two separated cities bylaws so that we're consistent on the incentives.
Okay, so I'll leave that to you to then take up with our staff and go from there.
That's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments or questions? Councillor Snell.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think, in my opinion, I think the ability to increase rent only makes sense, especially given the record high private sector rents that we're seeing, record low vacancy rates. Obviously, we're all experiencing in our municipalities significant increases with insurance, utilities, and overall operation costs. And I think it's just smart business to be able to sustain this essential service. And I think it's fair to say that we can all predict that there's going to be even more increased demand for this affordable housing, especially given the sharp increase in cost of living. So I applaud staff's recommendation to redefine the ratios in terms of the affordability as well as the market rents.
Thank you for those comments. I'll go back. Anybody else for comments? I'll go back to Councillor Fallis again.
Thanks. Apologies, because this is just a report I'm just trying to get my head around, so I really want to make sure I ask the questions. As it stands, if a provider comes to the county and let's say the majority of the units that are being considered are 80% market rent, there's a couple of 120, let's say, would the county still be able to fund that? If let's say a good chunk is still 80 to 100, but there's this small chunk of units within a build that's 120 market rent, does this open the door for funding that type of project, or would that still be could that still be funded for the units that are already fitting that definition? Thanks.
Through the chair, so as it stands currently, we can't incentivize above 100% of AMR for a developer that's approaching us, pitching us an opportunity for a mixed income community, as you shared, without redefining that definition, like updating or modernizing the definition of affordability. However, we could, if that developer comes, see if there's a provincial or federal program that could be layered in as it stands. For example, there's some 80% of AMR opportunities through OFI and COCHI and some of the other provincial ones. Like I mentioned, Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, we know there's precedence that it's gone up to 120% in other communities. So that's the approach we would take. Or we would reject the proposal because we believe that it doesn't generate enough revenue to be sustainable, which we've done in the past as well.
Oh, sorry. I think I could rephrase this a little better. Through the chair, does having any units that are at 100% or 100 market rent plus, like 101, 102, 120, whatever, does that eliminate that project from county funding? Thanks.
No.
Through the chair, no. No.
This bylaw is it's a definition of affordable housing. That's what this bylaw is. We've had it since 2008, and we're just updating it to today's standard. So it's a definition on affordable housing and how we can then incentivize projects to come down the road. So this is just a bylaw to update things. Thank you for the question. Okay, so I've got a move by, I said Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Norris. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Did I read it? That item CCW 2024-049 dated February 27, 2024 regarding a municipal housing project facilities bylaw be received and the necessary bylaw be presented to provide for municipal housing project facilities and to repeal bylaw number 5698. Sorry, again, please. All in favor? Thank you. Apologize for that. We're on to Section 8, Human Services, Community Services. 8.1, Reaching Home, the 2024 funding allocation. I'll ask our General Manager, Fayez Baguette, to please give us a synopsis of this report, if you don't mind, sir.
Through the chair, thank you. So this is our annual report where we share back our annual proposal for investing the Reaching Home, which is the federal pocket of funding for the homelessness and homelessness prevention programs. This report does three things particularly. It maps out some good news, which is the county was one of few service managers across Canada that received a 4-year pocket and commitment of funding. Most only received a 2, and historically we were not receiving the 4 years. In this round, we were able to receive the 4 years committed up front. The second thing is based on the last 6 years of the program and our participation in it, we're now taking the step to begin developing a broader community advisory board. So this report kind of gives notice of that, and it's really now that we have a system in place, we want to make sure that the community advisory board that advises and approves our investment strategies is more representative of those who are being served, which means we're looking for specifically the prioritized groups that this program requires us to serve, groups like Indigenous groups or different sub-priorities or specialized priority groups. And then third, it does flag, and this is probably the most important thing, that years 3 and 4 of the program, while we did receive it, it's representing right now an 83% cut in funding. This is also beginning for our launch of a comprehensive advocacy campaign with others who have received it. All service managers across Canada received this level of cut in years 3 and 4. We anticipate that this funding will be reintroduced in a different program focused on street engaged or encampment based services and programs. And this is really us realigning our investment strategy to make sure we qualify for future funding that will be reintroduced. So those are the three main things of the report, but it is important to note that, years 3 and 4, we're putting in place a strategy to ensure that we can still deliver the services.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Questions? Mayor Nuttall.
In terms of encampment services, can you describe what that is?
Through the chair, we're anticipating that this cut is so that the federal government can realign a more specific program rather than one that's based on outreach and supportive housing and or shelter operations. It's focused on direct services to that population that's living in encampments. We haven't really received any other information yet from the federal government on it, but we anticipate that's their focus because you're starting to see their requests and data are really focused on separating those who are staying in shelter versus those who are staying outside. So this is why we believe that this cut was to size down funding in year 3 and 4 to reintroduce that money, same amount probably, but to less service managers, those who have encampments. So this is why we're really building up our data strategy and our outreach strategy to demonstrate the level of need for those who are encamped and staying outside.
So is it your intention to apply for dollars to provide services inside of encampments?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. Like we're going to try to re-seek this funding to restructure it so that those are encamped are being engaged to come inside and find housing. So yeah.
And in terms of homeless prevention funding overall, so this is $3.5 million this year, next year, and then the reduction kicks in. We've recently had an increase from the province as well, so I'm guessing that means we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 million in subsidies from the provincial and federal governments a year for homelessness prevention. Is that, am I in the right neighborhood?
The combination of federal and provincial programs. There's some other legacy programs as well, and that it tacks on to around 24.5 million, and then the 3.5 million is municipally funded to get us to 28 million for the whole program.
Okay, and so the entire homeless prevention program is 28 million a year?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further comments or questions on this report? All right, seeing none, I'll ask Mayor Nuttall to move it, seconded by Councillor McDonald. No? Okay, another mover. Can I get a mover? Moved by Deputy Warden Coughlin, and still seconded by Councillor McDonald. Thank you. That item CCW 2024-36, dated February 27, 2024, regarding Reaching Home 2024-2025 funding allocation be received, and the necessary bylaw be enacted to authorize the warden clerk to enter into an amended funding agreement with Infrastructure Canada for the purpose of Reaching Home funding administration and community development substantively as the template attached as Schedule 1 in item CCW 2024-036, and the proposed Reaching Home 2024-25 funding allocations as substantially attached as Schedule 2 to item CCW 2024-036 be approved, and the necessary bylaw be enacted to authorize the General Manager, Social Community Services, or the Director from Social Community Services in their absence, and the County Clerk to enter into agreements with related community services. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into Section 9, Human Services, Land Ambulance. I have 9.1, one-time funding for community paramedicine. Questions or concerns with this report? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Fowler. That Item CCW 2024-061 dated February 27, 2024 regarding one-time funding for community paramedicine awarded from Ontario Health be received and that the one-time funding be allocated to purchase 2 new cardiac monitors, defibrillators, and 1 vehicle for community paramedicine wellness clinics as outlined in this item. Further questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into long-term care committee of management. And we're into section 10.1. I would turn it over to our General Manager, Jane Sinclair, for the start of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to introduce the next video clip. It's part of our It Takes a Village series, you may recall. We've been profiling some amazing stories that are occurring in our 4 long-term care homes and senior services. This particular video is about an outstanding volunteer who has committed more than 48 years of volunteerism at our home in Beaton, Simcoe Manor. So I hope you enjoy the video.
My name is Janet Tipping, and I'm a volunteer at Simcoe Manor. I have volunteered here for 48 years, and I do a number of things. I do music. I play for any musical function. I play for church services. I do ice cream on certain days on the units. We serve ice cream. And I set up the clergy list for the ministers to do their church services on Fridays. Well, doing music means that we do a lot of singing, and I come and I play the piano, and some days they just listen, and most days I have booklets and we sing. Well, I think they really enjoy the fact that they're together and they're singing the old songs that they knew, that they back when they were younger. It's the song like Daisy Daisy and those kind of songs that they grew up with. My mother started me off. She was a member of the auxiliary here years and years and years ago, before all the new changes, and they were looking for someone who could make music, play music, and I had just resigned from teaching to start my family, and Mom said, I've got a girl who can do it, and I've been here ever since playing. That's how I got started, and Mom started. My husband comes in on Sundays, and we do a hymn sing. He plays the trumpet, and we do a hymn sing on a Sunday. My kids grew up with me. My Andrea Wood Porter, and my son is very musical, so he and I would play the piano together. So yes, it's been a whole family affair. Now it's down to just Andrea and myself, but we both still enjoy doing it, love doing it. The staff are wonderful. They help you. They give you any guidance that you need. If you come in and say, well, I'm not sure what I could do, they've got all sorts of suggestions, one-to-one or trips or working in the dining room, volunteering in the dining room. The staff are amazing. They would be very, very helpful and very welcoming. I enjoy it. I like to meet the people. I talk to them, and I like to find out where they came from and what they did in their earlier years. And it turns out now I'm getting that I know families and their resident too. And so I enjoy working with them, and I love doing music, so I love doing things like that.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. We certainly have some pretty incredible people.
My name is Janet Tipping, and I'm a volunteer at Simcoe.
We have close to 200 volunteers right now, and we're continuing to build quite a gift to our long-term care and senior services. Thank you.
It is amazing when you go to the long-term care homes, you see the volunteers and see how they interact. So it's a wonderful video. It's I think our second one, is it? Or our second one, Jane, that we did? Is that the second video you've done? I've seen this before. So quite a good video, and wonderful to see that. So nice to see that done. So, all right. So thank you very much for that. We thank all our volunteers at the long-term care homes throughout the county. We're moving on to 10.2, the Sunset Manor funding for local priorities 2023-24. Questions or concerns with this report? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Gordon, that the item CCW 2024-66 dated February 27, 2024 regarding Sunset Manor funding for local priorities 2023-24 be received. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into section 11, Human Services, other matters for consideration. Anybody have other matters for consideration today? All right, seeing none. I then turn it back to you, Warden.
Thank you, Chair Leduc, and I want to thank the city reps for coming and joining us this morning. It's only 10 o'clock, so we'll carry on with our agenda. So I'll turn it over to Chair Dolan for our corporate services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 12, recommendation that the following consent item having given due consideration be received. So we have the one consent item, which is item 2023 solid waste data summary. Is there any questions or comments on that report? Seeing none, could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fryer and Councillor Cabral, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, item 13, corporate services, and 13.1 is a notice of appeal to the Township of Oro-Medonte official plan. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask then if Councillor Greenwald and Councillor Lavoie want to move and second the recommendation, which is that item CCW 2024-050, dated February 27, 2024, regarding appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal regarding the Township of Oro-Medonte official plan be received. The staff and legal counsel be permitted to attend all necessary meetings, complete all required filings, and attend all proceedings regarding the appeal to the Township of Oro-Medonte official plan approval, and that the County Director of Planning, Chief Planner, and or County Solicitor be authorized to sign any minutes of settlement on behalf of the County of Simcoe, if required, where such settlement maintains the intent of applicable provincial, county, and township policies, bylaws, and standards. All those in favor of the recommendation? Those contrary? That is carried. Next is item 14.1, speed limit adjustments, County Road 53 and County Road 14. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Anderson and Councillor Bell. The item CCW 2024-056, dated February 27th, 2024, regarding the speed limit adjustment on County Road 53 and County Road 14 be received, and the recommended speed limit adjustments as outlined within item CCW 2024-056 be approved, and the necessary bylaw be presented to amend traffic bylaw 6609. All those in favor of the recommendation? Those opposed? That is carried. Next is item 15, corporate services, solid waste management. I'm going to introduce Director Rob McCullough to provide a presentation regarding CCW 2024-055, organics management.
Good morning, Council, and appreciate a big report here in front of you. We've spoken a little bit about it before. I have some of my staff here to assist me with likely questions that may come up. Laura Barrett is our Manager of Collections, and Nikki Payne is our Special Project Supervisor. In 2010, we determined that long range, it made sense to develop what's now been known as the ERC, Environmental Resource Recovery Center. That would have essentially two major components of that being transfer station for garbage and recycling and organics processing facility. The site, we started working on it from then. A lot of work started in 2014, but it really resulted in site selection in 2016. It took some time to get the approvals to proceed. The zoning was authorized in 2022. And since that time, we've been doing a lot of work to get ready. Essentially, the since the approvals, we've been working with our consultants, GHD, on this project. We'll speak a little bit more about them, and Ernst & Young that handled the financial portion of it. We've been working out the exact OPF, or Organics Processing Facility technology. As you know, until this most recent report, we were sort of technology neutral, but we thought to be able to compare apples to apples, we had to really go down to the level to actually determine what the processing technology would be, and I'll speak a little bit more of that later. The capacity for the site had actually changed since we were looking at things back in 2016. You'll recall we had significant increase in curbside organics tonnage when we went to every other week recycling, or every other week garbage and every other week recycling at the same time. The scope of the project had to change. As you know, we've gone through recycling transition, so we had to remove those components of the project, and we had to update the project financing. And that was done with a new model to look at the ERC costs over a 20-year period compared to the business as usual, which is the exporting. The technology that we decided, and was nearly a foregone conclusion since almost all major food waste processing technologies have turned to AD, and wet AD seems to make sense here in Ontario. That's where most of the large processors have gone towards. It accepts a larger variety of items, contains the process that therefore limits the potential for off-site orders, has a consistent biogas yield, and is the common approach in Ontario and ability to retain skilled professionals. The reason we went to a larger facility is our original, we were looking at a 30,000 ton per year facility. We're almost producing that now, with essentially doubling the tonnage that our residents are putting out for us, and we've been quite successful in that. But when we look over a 20-year period, knowing the growth, knowing increased capture rates that we want to get to on organics, we believe near the end of that period, we'll be close to the 60,000 tons. The scope of work that was adjusted, the OPF, the Organics Processing Facility, remains. The Materials Management Facility, or transfer station, has been edited to remove the recycling component, since we're no longer responsible for that, and leaves the garbage. We therefore didn't need the recycling future potential for the recycling processing facility where you sort the recycling and then market it, because again, that's been taken off our hands. The Public Education Center and Administration Center remained, but the truck servicing facility was also removed. Project financing. Major change. As you may be aware, there's been a number of large municipalities that have looked at doing their own organics processing in the last 2 years. Major ones, both in Durham and I believe York, have been unsuccessful. The values that came in were significantly higher than was anticipated. So we worked with our consultants to see what was the problem. The problem was risk was being priced in by the bidders. And we know as a municipality, we're never risk-free, no matter how much we try and assign that risk to someone else. So we decided to try and do the best way we can go forward. Let's take on the risk that we basically have anyways, that we would do our own financing, and we would look at that. And that would give us what we felt was our best chance for success in getting a reasonably economic system to do that processing in that program. That brings us to the updated cost analysis. Because it's been 6 years since we did the original business analysis, which looked essentially favorable at the county doing the processing ourselves, a lot of things have changed, and I'll go into those things. But what we decided to do, again, was do a comparison between what we were, the costing of what we expected to develop versus the business as usual which is what we've been doing for the past since 2008 and start the program, is we take all the material and we export it to an external processor for management. The assumptions we made in the business as usual is that we would continue to use Oro as a transfer station for curbside garbage. The temporary facility we have there is more than enough capacity for doing us for the next many years. We looked at additional organics transfer capacity because what we designed and built at Oro was back when we were only producing 15,000 tons per year. The subsequent decision to go to every other week garbage doubled that. We're basically at capacity, and we do feel that we have some off-site odor impacts that we could do better if we developed it. So we looked at the cost for that. We also looked at truck servicing. The temporary transfer at Oro was supposed to, when the ERC was built, take over for our truck servicing. So we would be able to reutilize that building. But in the business as usual, where we're continuing to use that building, we had to look at external capacity for truck servicing and bulky operations, and the cart servicing facilities that we currently do out of Creemore. So that was all priced into the business as usual. And what did that tell us? When we look at our cost of developing the organics facility ourselves, the first two bar graphs are the low cost and the high cost. There's many unknowns, so we assume sort of a best case scenario for the low, sort of worst case scenario for the high, and then we just took an average. So the dotted line across that is the average, and that's the full cost of capital and operating over a 20-year period. The ERC average for doing that's about close to 380 million over that period. And the business as usual, based on the cost that we're paying right now for transfer, haulage, and external processing at our current contractor, was built into that business as usual model, was 266 million, 111 million less than the average. So that's why we thought we better go out and see whether that business as usual case that we built in is accurate, or are there better opportunities? We heard in the fall some large municipalities had signed long-term processing contracts for much less than we were paying. We wanted to see what that would look for us like. So we actually did go out to market and did a request for proposal on that. And the green bar graph is telling you what we found. So over the next 20 years, 157 million, which includes the cost of transportation to an external processor, is $220 million cheaper than the average development cost to do this ourselves. So we bring that to you today for consideration. We, as staff, are quite disappointed that we wouldn't be able to do it as cost effectively ourselves, but we don't want to be stuck in a sunk cost fallacy where we have invested money. We need to come back to you and tell you what we understand where the market is, and provide county council an option for the export that we think overall over the long term will be most cost effective. We would then have to redo all those things that I spoke to you about in the analysis. We would have to continue to use the organics transfer at Oro. We would have to rebuild that in a longer term model. We'd have to continue to use the garbage transfer at Oro that's already built and quite sufficient for that. And we'd have to look at coming back to council with recommendations on what we're going to do with our long-term truck servicing. We also would need to come back to council at some future point to talk about what we're going to do with the existing zoning on the ERC property. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. To you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director McCullough. I would just like to make a note to members of committee that there is a related confidential Schedule 2 to the report. So if I could ask indulgence to have general questions now in open session, and then if there's specific questions to Schedule 2, we would ask the warden to clear the chambers and go into closed session. So we'll start with any general questions, and I saw Councillor Bell.
That was a great report, Rob. Thank you. I know things are changing all the time, so I guess I have two questions. One would be, is there a maximum amount of tonnage that they'll allow us to take? Because just like landfill, you have to commit to that each year. As we grow and we actually start to defer more from the landfill, are they going to be able to support that? I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, yes, through you, Madam Chair, we did look at our projections all the way through. I could even go back to our original chart in here. We have secured, if we go ahead and sign the contract with the external processor, we have secured the tonnage that we expect, both with growth and with increased capture rate through different programs that we're likely to bring forward, and the province may have, and as far as landfill bans for organics has been talked about, possibly in 2030. That's why you see some of the jumps in the dark green line graph there. That's what we're expecting based on what the province has told us.
Okay.
So it is there and available.
And through the chair, my second question. Have you looked at, when you looked at the cost of going out, this reduced cost of, I think it was 157 million, was that also including the building of this new building at, okay.
Yes, it includes not only the building of the additional organics, the new organics transfer facility, it includes an estimated cost for the building of a truck servicing facility and property acquisition, as well as it includes the cost of transportation. Obviously, we wouldn't have had to transport if we were doing the ERC ourselves. It includes the cost of transport to that location. That's all built into those costs.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Dolan, and through you to the Director, a very good report coming from a municipality whose recent experience is the exact opposite when we got into tender, is that it's a doubling of the cost. It was good to see the extra savings. It led me to think about the fact that it's 20 years, and 20 years is a long time, but in the scheme of waste and recovery, it's not. What's the considerations in deciding on the 20-year time frame rather than possibly 30 or 20 plus 10 option or that type of thing?
Sure. We wanted, obviously it's taken a long time to come to the point that we are on the ERC, so we didn't want to have a short-term contract and have nothing after it. We also wanted to have the ability to compare and contrast the same 20-year period. Now, I would say the actual contracts that we'd be signing, if council agrees to this report, is a 3-year short-term contract, then a 20-year. So it's actually 23 years of processing capacity starting from the fall of this year. I hope I've answered your question. The major issue being it takes a long time to develop these facilities. We wanted enough lead time in the future. Obviously, a lot of things are going to have changed in the market, but we wanted to nail down rates as we go forward. Obviously, there's CPI increases and that sort of thing that you would normally expect in the contract, and expected organics tonnage increases as we go through. The length of time, it just gives us security for that purpose.
Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rob, for the presentation. I'm going to speak in support of the recommendation as written. This is a good savings for us. It absolutely shows that we can do this for the next 23 years at a savings that we can all enjoy and the residents can take advantage of. It allows us to plan out for the next 23 years. It doesn't solve our garbage issue that we have, our waste issue, but it does help us with our organics moving forward, and it allows us to then concentrate on the road, down the road, to see about building a facility that works for Simcoe County when it possibly comes to, and I'm going to say it, I've said it many times, incineration is my, that's where I would go with my process, and I think that gives us a long time to start to investigate that. So I'm absolutely in support of the recommendation the way it's written. I look forward to seeing further reports, but this is, in my mind, something that we as county council should certainly support. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Warden.
Just very quickly, I want to commend staff on actually before putting the shovels in the ground, picking your heads up, taking another look around at the market out there, always looking to save the taxpayer money. Well done on this, and this is a huge savings for the folks. So well done on that. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Warden. You took the words right out of my mouth. I think that generally the instinct is to just forge ahead, no matter what, and to take a step back and to pivot and take a second look at it and make the recommendation was well done by you and your team. Other questions or comments? Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Thank you, and through your chair, echoing what the last comments have been, and just to sincerely thank staff. It's been a long 10 years or 12 years in this process, and it's been very well supported by the county at the local level, the support through communication, and it's been great with our residents. So I just wanted to thank you and your staff for getting us to this point, and also echoing Chair Dolan that just to have the foresight to make sure that we don't just remain on a path just because we started on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Is there a desire to go into closed session to discuss Schedule 2? Seeing none, then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. So Deputy Warden Coughlin and Councillor Leduc, that item CCW 2024-055 dated February 27, 2024 regarding organics management be received, and that Council discontinue development of the Environmental Resource Recovery Center at this time, and that staff proceed with the award of both short-term 3 years and long-term 20 years organics processing contracts subject to the satisfaction of legal, procurement, and solid waste management staff, and that committed reserve funds related to the ERRC be transitioned to a commitment within the Waste Management Contingency Reserve to fund capital projects required as a result of discontinuing the development of the ERRC as generally outlined within this item. All those in favor of the report? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously, and I would also say, Warden, that's probably the shortest waste discussion we've ever had, so that must mean it's right. Thank you. We'll go on to item 16.1, which is the Economic Development Subcommittee report dated February the 13th. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Miskimings, Councillor McDonald, that recommendations contained within the Economic Development Subcommittee report dated February 13th, 2024 be approved. All in favor? Any contrary? Seeing none, that's carried. And I will ask if there are any other matters for consideration today. Seeing none, I'll pass it on to you, Warden.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. And now, Chair Evans, if you would do performance management. We're still making good time. Why don't we just push on through, folks?
Thank you, Warden. Appreciate that. Yes, moving on to item 17, performance management consent items. Are there any items that Council would like to pull for comment or discussion? Warden?
Yes, I'd like to pull 17.3.
Thank you. Any others? I would like to make a comment after, but I'd certainly give the floor now to Worship.
You want to pass the other two first?
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, if I could, I think it'd be appropriate here just to move on with the other items,
okay,
and then speak to 17.3 specifically. So the motion would be that the following consent items, with the exception of item 17.3, having been given due consideration, be received. And we can take a mover and a seconder for that.
Okay, so an amended motion that the following consent items having been given due consideration be received, except for item 17.3. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fowler, move, please. Councillor Fryer, seconder. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 17.3, letter dated February 13th, 2024 from Western Ontario Wardens Caucus regarding the Social and Economic Prosperity Review. I'll start with you, Warden.
Thank you. I've just had a motion drafted. I'd like to endorse this letter. I think we all are starting to feel the pinch now as with the homelessness and the health care, with the constant downloads coming from the province, and there's only one taxpayer. And we'd kind of like to focus on what's under our mandate and spend the taxes where it should be spent and not be picking up the baggage from the upper tiers. So I would like to see us endorse it. You'll see 17.2, Romero actually endorsed it as well. So I'd like to endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Any comments or questions, Council? Okay, I'd like to make a quick comment myself. I think this issue is something that's actually core to what we are as an upper tier government. I totally concur with the motion. I think it has a different level or deeper level to it, though, as well. And this is related. I'll just quote per the motion: promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario. We're going through, obviously, huge changes. Canada-wide, 5.8 million homes we want to build, or we've been tasked to build by 2030, 1.5 million in Ontario. A lot of infrastructure development, and as we all know, sitting here, who builds an infrastructure on a municipal level? We do. We're the builders, and we're not gatekeepers. On the federal level, there's been some talk about people that we're not doing our part to promote housing. And I take a real offense to that. Small township like Tiny, we have had 10,000 residences for the last 40 years. In 2022, we issued 980 building permits. So 980 in a small little community like ourselves is something, and I'm sure we all, from the large and the small, are seeing the same thing. And this is an issue that pertains to all of us, large and small, and in terms of building or not, infrastructure or no infrastructure. This is something that we're being tasked by the provincial government and the federal government to make substantive changes to our communities. And when it really comes down to it, how are we going to pay for it? We're being, there's new highways, there's new universities, there's new tasks for us, and right now we don't have the tools to do it. If I'm looking at FCM, the conference is going on right now, and there's some interesting stats that came out of that yesterday. One was that FCM has estimated the infrastructure cost for one single detached unit is $107,000. Now we have low taxes in Tiny, but average taxes of $5,000 to $7,000 a year, and property taxes. You do the ROI on that. From a business perspective, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Now, that's for profit, but we're not in that business here. We're in the profit of making communities and giving people in our communities somewhere to live and to create communities that people want to live in. So I see some real issues here. And the other thing about infrastructure is we're being tasked to deal with all this new that's being put on us. Before I've been around here, but I did some research, and we're seeing this in our municipality. In 2018, the asset management planning for municipal infrastructure was implemented, 588/17, until I've been there a couple times. We all have the same issue. We haven't invested in infrastructure. We have a latent and a legacy issue that we have to deal with, on top of the fact that conditions are changing and we're still using old paradigms and old models of financing to be able to deal with these added pressures. So not only do we have to build for new homes, and we all want to build for new homes. Frankly, I don't even have to develop the land. I want to get it. We're ready to go. So we're ready to build homes. We want to make good communities, but we have to deal with, like in my case, $380 million of infrastructure, and I've got $500 million infrastructure gap that I have to address as well. So there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built. We're happy to do it. I think we can speak for everybody here that we're all excited about that. We love the places that we live. We want more people to be here, but we want to give them good communities that are better than we're here already. And we need new tools from the province and the federal to be able to provide those funds to ourselves. And I'll just conclude it with, I know that universities and highways are very glamorous, and sewers and water are maybe not so much. But if you have a backed up toilet and it doesn't work, or you can't build because you can't get water, that's what really is going to hurt our communities. And when they get off the highway, where are they going to go? So we got to make sure that as a community and as an upper tier government, we work with the province, we work with the federal, but we start to really push the need for, frankly, more mundane but core financial support for the future. Thank you. Councillor Dolan, please.
Thank you. I think I want to thank both the warden and Chair Evans, Vice Chair Evans, for bringing this forward. I think it's having the desired effect. The minister's alluded that he's getting a lot of these resolutions, and so that's important to make the government stand up and pay attention. I know the federal government through our FCM with our friend alternate Councillor Kathy Jeffries and her team on FCM is doing their work with the federal government in a similar vein. So I think that that pushing the province to have a cold hard look at this is important. My one caution will be this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. The last time this happened was, I think, during Premier McGuinty when he first agreed to doing a fiscal municipal structure review, and it took several years and lots of time and effort. So this, I don't think, will be any different. But I think, you know, every journey starts with a single step, so we have to get this journey underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dolan. Any other comments, questions, Council? We're good. Pass it over to you, Clerk, for the amended motion, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to read the motion out for the House here that the Warden is making. It's that Council endorse the letter and request the Province of Ontario commit to undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario, and that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister of Finance, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And you just need a seconder, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. Any other comments or questions? Moved by Warden, seconded by Councillor Laux. Any further discussion, comments? All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, moving on. Performance management 18.1. Lands transfer settlement agreement between the Corporation of the County of Simcoe and the Corporation of the Township of Medonte. Any comments or questions on this? Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Miskimins, that item CCW 2024-062 dated February 27th, 2024, regarding settlement of negotiations between the Corporation of the County of Simcoe and the Corporation of the Township of Oro Medonte be related to the Oro landfill lands be received, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to authorize the Warden and the County Clerk to execute the land transfer settlement agreement attached as Schedule 1 to this item, and all other associated documentation required to implement the settlement in a form approved by the Director of Legal Services. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. Other matters for consideration under performance management. Do we have any at this time? None that I see. Thank you very much. Back to you, Warden.
Thank you, Chair Evans. So I'll ask the House, does anybody want to go into camera to discuss the issue that's in there? Certainly don't be shy. I'm not seeing any. So then with that, I will move on to the public motion. The confidential Schedule 2 to item CCW 2024-055 dated February 27, 2024 regarding a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, a group of persons, an organization, be received. Moved by Councillor Walker, second by Councillor Fowler. Any other? I guess there's no comments. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So lastly, I would look for a motion that the February 27, 2024 Committee of the Whole be adjourned at 10:33. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Snell. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Wow.